And we have updates on the House Oversight Committee's probe into the Biden family. Hunter Biden's attorney is now pushing to have lawmakers probe the president's son in a public setting instead of a closed-door session. NTD's Melina Wisecup joins us now from Capitol Hill. So, Melina, first of all, why does Hunter Biden want to use this approach of a public hearing?
Well, essentially the reason why here, Steve, is because Hunter Biden's legal team just simply does not trust the Republican-led committee. In a letter written to the committee today, Hunter Biden's lawyer, Abe Lowell, accused the committee of carrying out a baseless investigation, which they say the American public should see on full display for themselves. But furthermore, he also accused the committee of using previous closed-door sessions to manipulate evidence before that evidence comes out for the public to hear, the Republican-led committee's version of it. Now, keep in mind, this is the initial response from Hunter Biden's legal team to that subpoena that requires Hunter Biden to come testify on December 13th. Steve?
So, Melina, what is next? And has the Oversight Committee responded to this request from Hunter Biden's lawyer?
Well, yeah, Steve. So it's not looking like Hunter Biden's legal team is going to get their way here. That's because the chairman of the committee, James Comer, has already responded to this letter from Hunter Biden's legal team, essentially saying that they're trying to play by their own rules here, and said that Hunter Biden is still compelled to come testify behind closed doors under the conditions in the current subpoena. They also left the door open for him to come testify publicly at a later date after that closed door session is over with. They also hinted at the reason why, and that is this is the process that all other witnesses have had to follow, including those witnesses that were compelled to come testify before the January 6th Select Committee. Now, keep in mind, Steve, this is only one subpoena to one Biden family member. There are still many others, including James Biden, the president's brother, who is asked to come for an interview next week on December 6th. Steve?
Well, the drama seems to never stop up there at that theater that you're reporting at so often. So, Melina, lastly, you've also been following the progress of an aid package to Ukraine and Israel. What are you hearing right now, and where are lawmakers ultimately at as we speak?
Well, yeah, that's actually another piece of the drama, of course, that's playing out right now. And where we are right now with that is the fact that there is a bipartisan group of senators who's working on a package that would allow for border security provisions to be lumped together with Ukraine aid. And this is a way, Steve, that they're trying to shore up more Republican support for that Ukraine aid. We know there are many Republicans who are skeptical of it without first securing our own border. But from what we heard from Senate Leader Chuck Schumer today, it's not looking like that those talks are progressing in a very efficient way. But he says he's still pushing forward to hold a vote on the full aid package from President Biden that would include aid for Israel, Ukraine, the Indo-Pacific, and the border, whether or not these border talks come to fruition. Take a look at what Senate Leader Schumer had to say.
Democrats are working to have a good faith conversation with Republicans on what both sides can agree on the border. But we're going to have to pass the 4 bills, very important for America. And as I said, I'm going to put them on the floor next.
Now, as for the House's part, Speaker Mike Johnson did say that he was optimistic that Ukraine funding could pass the House, but it is incumbent on having bipartisan border provisions in that package. This means that the pressure is really on for this bipartisan group of senators to come to an agreement. Otherwise, Steve, I really don't know how these two chambers are going to be able to come to an agreement on Ukraine aid, let alone Israel aid, which, remember, the House did already pass their own version of, but is stalled in the Senate because Senate Democrats are not happy with their spending cuts. Steve, back to you.
NTD's congressional correspondent Melina Wisecup reporting live from Capitol Hill. Melina, thank you. And as a hostage for prisoner swap continues to unfold in the Gaza Strip, Hamas terrorists reportedly attacking Israeli forces in what appears to be the first violation of the ceasefire, which was supposed to hold through tomorrow. According to the IDF, several explosive devices went off at 2 different locations in northern Gaza. In one instance, Israeli troops were targeted with gunshots, which forced them to shoot back. The attacks reportedly left a number of Israeli soldiers wounded. The IDF chief of staff warned that Israel is prepared to resume fighting today and will be prepared until they eliminate Hamas. 12 hostages, including 10 Israelis and 2 Thai citizens, were released from Hamas captivity today and are now back in Israel. Honoring Rosalynn Carter, former President Jimmy Carter coming out of hospice care to send off his late wife of 77 years at a memorial service attended by both past and present United States presidents. NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao brings us more.
At a Tuesday service in Atlanta, former First Lady Rosalynn Carter, who died earlier this month at the age of 96, is honored by family, loved ones, and dignitaries, including President Joe Biden, former President Bill Clinton, and all 5 living First Ladies, Hillary Clinton, Laura Bush, Michelle Obama, and Melania Trump. Also among them, her husband, former President Jimmy Carter, who's 99 and receiving hospice care at home. The two were married for 77 years, the longest marriage of any first couple in U.S. history, both building a lasting legacy outside the White House through their humanitarian work. Their daughter is struggling through tears while reading a letter President Carter wrote to his wife 75 years ago.
But when I see you, I fall in love with you all over again. Does that seem strange to you? It doesn't to me. Goodbye, darling. Until tomorrow. Jimmy.
And their grandsons, saying Rosalynn was always his grandmother first.
And she was like everyone else's grandmother in a lot of ways. Almost all of her recipes call for mayonnaise, for example.
President Biden's relationship with the Carters spans decades, back to when then-Senator Biden endorsed Carter for president in 1976. Biden said earlier this year that President Carter has asked him to deliver his eulogy. While President Biden did not speak at the service, he said in a statement that Rosalynn Carter walked her own path, inspiring a nation and the world along the way. A private funeral is slated for Wednesday. Reporting from the White House, Iris Tao, NTD News.
The Chinese Communist Party spreads its malign influence in the United States and around the globe using an apparatus called the United Front. Mao Zedong once called it a magic weapon for success. Today, U.S. lawmakers are detailing how this malevolent mechanism operates. NTD's Arian Pazdar takes a closer look.
China's United Front Work Department pushes the CCP's evil ideology in the U.S. and around the globe. On Tuesday, the Select Committee on the CCP published a bipartisan memo saying Chinese dictator Mao Zedong described United Front Work as a magic weapon for the party's success. The CCP used it during the 1960s in its Cultural Revolution, which killed tens of millions of people. United Front Work contains activities that aim to pressure, threaten, and attack individuals, companies, governments, and more, so that they align with CCP interests. Nowadays, these activities even take place in the United States. Earlier this year, multiple pro-China protesters interrupted a congressional hearing that focused on the CCP's United Front work.
The biggest threat to this country and the world, we need to...
I think these eruptions are indicative of really the effect that the United Front Work Department has had. They reinforce, I think, the idea that America is the problem in the world, and only if America disengages, or in this case becomes more passive, that things will get better.
Another example of United Front work in the US are alleged Chinese police stations, which actually serve as spy posts for the CCP, like the one in Manhattan that made headlines earlier this year. Another example of United Front work in the US took place earlier this year when Taiwan's president visited the United States. The CCP told organizations in California and in New York to go protest Taiwan's leader during her visit. Now, of course, people have the right to protest. But what if tensions between China and the US keep rising? What if a war breaks out? It's not clear how the CCP might use its outposts in the United States in such a scenario. Arian Pastar, NTD News.
Meanwhile, in China, mask wearing and social distancing are once again back in the public domain. An unexplained surge of new pneumonia cases is sweeping across the communist nation. Footage circulating online showing hospitals grappling with patients young and old. In northern China, more and more sick children are reportedly overwhelming local clinics and emergency rooms. Beijing officials insisting that flu and common winter colds are behind the outbreak and denied any possibilities of a new pathogen. The World Health Organization echoing this claim, but later requesting more information about the illness. The outbreak comes nearly 1 year after China lifted its draconian COVID-19 lockdown measures. The regime has faced increased scrutiny over its handling of the initial COVID outbreak when it failed to let the world know of COVID-19 inside of China, while taking precautions inside of their own country and letting the virus spread unfettered throughout the rest of the world. And coming up, an expert on web safety says we need to teach about history's bad actors as well as ushering in a cultural shift. And this, more than cracking down on big tech, could be the key to solving social media. Find out how he connects the dots. Stay tuned for that and more when we return. Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.